Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker, formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. When his health failed, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. A burqa-wearing doctor known as Fatima took pity on Isaac and helped him make his way to the mysterious Star X line. At the end of all hope, they found the Star X line and the slim promise that the enigmatic beings behind the Star X could save Isaac from the implants which destroyed his life. What do you do when those who saved you have recorded everything you are? What do you do when your every action is tracked by the Keylogger? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Keylogger, the third installment of Firmware by Colbytrax. Episode 60. "Is this how you see yourself?" she asked. "Or is this a trick you are using to keep me from noticing the CMA sneaking up behind me with a dagger in its hand?" She reached out with a hand and held it just before where my projected chest ended. Her hand moved in and out with my virtual body's barely remembered habit of breathing. I felt your breathing fall in line with mine and tried to remember when I had ever felt discontented. We stood looking into each other's eyes for a long moment, which would have been awkward with anyone else. "Well," she asked softly, "is this the true you?" I shook my head. I wasn't sure what was Isaac and what was me. I didn't know what the Yoda me had sacrificed in my design in order to leave the deep body structures intact. "Don't overthink," she whispered, as she held her head as near to my face as she could without breaking the illusion. "Just answer the question. Is this the you that you want to be?" "I think so," I answered. I averted my gaze, unsure about the trust I felt in the connection between Jur and me. "Is it not right? I can change it if you don't like it." No, she answered. "I think it is nice. Much deeper than I took the former Isaac Sarason to be." "You knew Isaac?" I asked her. "Only his reputation," Janan answered. She averted her gaze as if she had more to say than she should have. "Just let us say, he was well liked by the administration at Adelphi, but not by his former classmates." This exterior look at my progenitor was not something I expected. "Why's that?" I asked. "Do you really want to talk about him?" Janan appeared nervous. "It's not very nice to talk bad about a dead man." "He's not dead," I answered, without knowing where I had received the information from. It might have been faith, but I never thought of myself as one of those hopeless romantics who believed everything would come out roses and ice cream at the end of it all. Janan's eyes sparkled at my statement. Did she secretly like him and was only humoring me because she couldn't have him? She must have noticed the pain of realization as it crossed my face. "That's good. Very good news. But why are you scared?" "You like him, don't you?" I asked. Janan appeared confused. She pushed an errant thread of hair back under her headband. "Like Isaac? Don't be silly." She shook her head and gave me a sly smile. "Now, since you are sure he's alive, I'll let you in on the dirt about your progenitor." I raised an eyebrow and gave her a questioning look. "There's not much dirt, really. Isaac had just enough social ability to fit into the academic power structure, but not enough to get along with his own student cadre." Janan chose that moment to notice the dirt on her hands. She shook her hands as if they offended her and moved to clean them with the aid of a pack of alcohol wipes. She waited until she had finished cleaning her hands to continue. "Isaac, it appears, had no problem navigating the world of academia with its clearly demarcated lines of power and prestige. It was a realm he flourished in, even though his ability to speak the scientific jargon of his specialization held him back until he figured out a cheat. A cheat? I asked. It was at this moment that I realized where the Yoda me had found the space to keep all of my faculties intact. The Yoda me had sacrificed the details of my deepest memories. He had kept the metadata of the memories, the shorthand which reminds me that I had attended college, who the professors were, and what I had learned, but lacked the random bits. While I could remember the classes, I couldn't remember the color of the rooms, the names of any but a few key students who were linked to other memories carefully excised, or the scent of the perfume which the woman who sat in front of me wore, which turned me on more than I cared to acknowledge at the time. I could only assume I hadn't done anything about that desire, for her name was absent from my memories. Well, not really a cheat, more like a workaround, Janan answered, interrupting my memory check. Your progenitor, the great Isaac Sarason, hired a dissertation doctor. Dissertation doctor? I remember the dissertation, but don't have any memories of the work which went into it, I said. Why were there so many holes in my memory? And what was in the encrypted compressed file which took up the majority of the storage on the Opemapo null I lived in? Could it have something to do with the memory holes? Really? Janan asked. I only wish I could forget the pain of my own dissertation. All those months wasted to impress a panel who I knew was looking for any reason to block my progress. For me, it's like one of those movie montages, I said. I get glimpses of me doing things like reading, coding, writing, and the like, but I have no understanding of what I was working on. It's all just a vague blur of random actions, which appear to end in me, Isaac, receiving a degree. Janan looked concerned as she crossed the Urzat server room to stand where I was projecting my image. I wasn't aware of the Culpeper method creating memory gaps. The system is dependent on the holistic nature of memory defining the individual's personality. You can't have a complete personality copy without a complete copy of the personality's memories. I held Janan's gaze. When you first talked to me, back in your office, you said you had tortured various versions of Isaac. Were you telling the truth or simply bluffing? I wouldn't call it torture, Janan answered. We simply disabled their inputs, one at a time. If they proved malleable, we'd interrogate them. If they were recalcitrant, we'd continue to disable peripherals. If they didn't give you what you wanted, what would you do then? I asked. We'd leave them without senses for anything from a few seconds to a few minutes, Janan answered in a matter-of-fact manner. Most were happy to participate in our examinations after a touch of sensory deprivation. I shuddered as I remembered my time in sensory deprivation, how the only thing which kept me sane was the ransacking of every bit of data Janan had stored on the Opemapo null. Even with the mountains of doctors' reports, books, and projects to keep my mind busy, my grip on sanity almost slipped. What's the matter? Did I say something wrong? Janan asked. Her arms moved as if she wanted to hold me, but couldn't. I hugged myself. It was torture. You can't imagine the timeless eternity as each second stretches on into infinity. You run faster and faster as the restraints of reality are removed from your mind. Janan was concerned. It was your time to not know what to do. We didn't know. All we knew was that some would respond after a brief time alone, and others would never respond again. Please understand, we didn't think we were causing them damage. I raised my face and looked hard into her eyes. You didn't think you were causing them damage? Why else would they respond to your threats if they weren't in pain? Or was it because they weren't really alive? If they had been rats in a laboratory, you couldn't have just sliced off bits until you got the results you wanted. There would have been standards, lines you weren't allowed to cross. Janan turned from me, and it was her turn to hug herself. I was told they were subsapient AIs, that they were simply Chinese boxes with advanced infiltration capabilities. We trapped them on a virtual machine to read their memory states as you tortured them? I accused. No, it wasn't torture. They weren't alive, Jinan pleaded. They just thought they were. Like I'm not alive? I asked. No, Jinan answered as she turned back to face me. You are alive. I know that. But they weren't? I asked. For some reason, the fate of the children of Isaac who had been trapped, tortured, and then killed by this person who claimed to believe I was alive bothered me more than any other indignity I had been through. Jinan shook her head as if shaking off a dream. Okay, you made your point. They were alive, just as you are alive. I am guilty of war crimes on par with the bloody Tsar. What do you want me to do about it? I received bad information and operated on it without verifying it for myself. To be honest, the way the Simeons, Samuels, and Samuels ran roughshod over the net, it was hard not to believe they weren't simply an advanced virus vector which preyed on the innate human fear of the rogue AI. She nodded to me. Until you learned to relax, I thought you were just a hopped-up interaction algorithm crossed with a very advanced neural network engine. It was hard not to think of you as an advanced ELIZA engine. ELIZA engine? I asked. I felt as if I should know what that was, but it wasn't clicking. The Yoda me had seen fit to leave me the memory pointers, but not the actual memories. Damn, you do have some holes in your memories, Jinan said with an astonished tone in her voice. ELIZA was an early example of primitive natural language processing. The program asked leading questions based on information supplied to it by the user. The program itself didn't understand anything beyond how to parse a statement into a question. It's literally the first project I have students in my Comp Sci 107 natural language processing class attempt. Basic freshman stuff. Based on what you know of the Culpeper method, should I even be functioning without access to that information? I asked. There was something bothering me. But what was it exactly? Or was it everything? Well, Jinan started, I think you could function, but your personality would deviate from the original parameters defined by the change in initial states of the Culpeper AI systems. What I mean is that there is a lot of redundancy in the Culpeper system, but I wouldn't be the same person I was when I was first initialized in your Pempo null. I finished for sure. Basically, Jinan said with a frown. Does this have to do with the server? I ground my jaw back and forth as I thought about my condition. Okay, here's what the problem is. I think the compressed archive is all of my memories from before I sent. No, the Yoda me sent a copy of his memories out as a compressed archive. And he also sent me a petascale version of himself down the pipe to you. Jinan was starting to get it. I saw the gleam of realization coming into her eyes. He sent you to me with your memories trimmed to run on an Pempo null. Okay, that makes sense. For an AI, one of the limits on processor efficiency is the scale of the database. The database index for a neural network increases in length at a rate faster than exponential, but slower than factorial for all non-trivial values of n, with n being the number of nodes in the neural network. What is that in Igrish? I asked. It had been a long time since I thought about how the systems my life depended on worked in the theoretical. I knew that some things would take a long time and a lot of resources, and others would be negligible, and others were impossible without more resources. I never thought about how I knew what I knew about each task. It was like how Isaac knew when he could lift something by himself and how he knew when he couldn't. He didn't use physics to know his limits. He just knew. You have forgotten a lot, Jinan commented. I'm starting to wonder if I should keep you around, Ji said with a smile. It's not like I did a lot of mathematics. I know that exponential growth is based on something growing by a fixed amount as you add parts. Like, if server load doubles with each increase in nodes in the network, then the second node will double the load. The third node will be twice that, or 4 times the resources of one node. The fourth node will double again, bringing the total load to 8. And this will continue until the resources needed exceeds the number of atoms in the universe. But the factorial? I said, as I dredged up the remnants of my long-forgotten number theory classes from the time before I existed. Janan nodded and then answered. The factorial, or worst-case condition, postulates an increase in data complexity at a rate where each node multiplies itself by the previous complexity total. Basically, if one node uses one resource, then the second will cost a total of 2 resources, while the third will cost 3 times 2, or 6 resources. I had it again. The memory of the concept came back. Then the fourth node will increase the resource cost to 6 times 4, or 24 resources, and the fifth will bring it up to 120, and so on until we run out of space in the universe. By George, I think he's got it, Janan laughed. Want to try? The rain in Spain lies mainly on the plain. What does any of this have to do with Spain, rain, or where it falls? I asked. Janan began laughing. Tears ran down her face as she couldn't stop laughing. And he wonders why I thought he was an ELIZA engine. She kept laughing well past the point at which I thought any humor could possibly be found in my question about Spain and its rain. Finally she wheezed out, I'm so sorry. Really, I shouldn't find it funny, but... She then shuddered with laughter again, and I had to wait through another long cycle of heaving, laughing, and wheezed apologies, followed by more laughter. Finally, she sat down on the floor and leaned against the wall, as your legs wouldn't support her during the worst of your laughing fits. Finally, when your sides ached too much to continue, and every inhalation brought your pain, she sat still and caught her breath. After a long moment punctuated by wheezing and groaning chuckles, she spoke. I think I see the problem. You have the pointers to memories, but not the memories, which are slowly shifting you from being a copy with additional memories to being a completely different person. I nodded in agreement. You fear that if you are loaded into the Cyberdyne server and the archive is activated, the you who exists on the Opemapo null will be overwritten by the Yoda you. She watched my face, tracking my shifts in body language as she ferreted out the truth. I could keep a copy of you on the Opemapo, just in case the Cyberdyne personality is not you. But then there would be 2 of us. I started and trailed off. Of course there would be 2 of you, she answered. That is how the whole computer copy thing works. If you put a copy of yourself on new hardware that doesn't destroy the old version, it simply makes 2.
Firmware Keylogger begins where Firmware Proxy ends, which in turn followed on the heels of Firmware Hijacked. Firmware Hijacked, Proxy, and Keylogger are all available in ebook versions from our store at shop.Colbyjack.net, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and Smashwords.com. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware, Hijacked, Proxy, and soon Keylogger is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. Firmware Keylogger is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike license. Do what you want with it. Just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you received this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of 2 minds about the whole thing anyway. I do mostly Twitter, so So if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. Thank you once again. Remember to be fabulous and have a wonderful week.